Good morning, Brookfield Zoo fans, and welcome to this edition of Bringing the Zoo to You. My name's Tim Sullivan. I'm one of the curators here at Brookfield Zoo and happy to host this episode. We're bringing you to the Hamill Family Play Zoo. As you know already, hopefully our zoo has been open since March 1st and people have been coming in. We've had some great weather and the next couple of days look the same. Unfortunately, our buildings aren't open yet and we hope to do that in the near future, so keep an eye on the website because we want to bring you back in to see all the great animals. But until then, we wanted to bring you into the Hamill Family Play Zoo to give you a little update on the animals in this area. Now this exhibit is really wonderful. It's designed for kids from 1 to 10 and it allows them to play, become a zookeeper and do all the chores that zookeepers do. They can be a veterinarian or actually be one of the animals that's here. And in fact, let's start with our favorite animal here, and one of my favorite, which is the Tamandua. This animal is amazing. They are anteaters, or lesser anteaters. They're found in southern Mexico, Central America, and in South America. They're a nocturnal animal that lives in the forests and grasslands and spend half their time in the tree and some of their times on the ground. They're about 3 feet long and weigh about 17 pounds. And they're really specialized because they eat a very special type of diet, which are ants and termites. And that's why they have that oddly shaped head. It's very tapered and have more of a tubular nose, but that allows them to get into the ant nests and the termite nests. And once they're there and they're on the termites and ants, they have a 16-inch tongue that can come out. It's sticky and they go into the nest and it gets covered with ants or termites. They suck it back into their mouth. They don't have any teeth. They kind of crunch the ants or termites on the plates in their mouth and then swallow it. So of course, ants and termites don't like to be eaten. So this animal has very thick fur. So if the animals come out and try and bite the Tamandua, they have a way to kind of protect themselves. Now, if you were here, you would smell this really potent smell that Tamanduas have. They have very powerful scent glands at the base of their tail, and they use this to help mark their territory, find each other, and of course, it might be a deterrent for predators that they might find in the areas they live in, which might be jaguars or margays, some of the larger cats there, medium-sized cats. But they're very good at defending themselves. They have very sharp claws on their front forelegs that are used both to get into termite mounds and nests, but also if they're being preyed upon, they can climb up into a tree, use their prehensile tail and their rear legs to hold onto the branch, and they can swat at the predator with those sharp claws. Now, sharp claws are great for defense and getting into termite mounds, but they're not so great when you're trying to walk. And so if you ever see a Tamandua walking on the ground, you'll notice they're a little bit awkward because those claws are very long. They end up walking on the sides of their forelimbs, and so they don't actually poke themselves with their own claws. So these are great animals. We love to have you come out and see them and smell them, of course. And right now, this guy, we have two actually, a male and a female. This might be the male here. And he's just kind of resting in the treetops. He's just kind of enjoying his day. All right, any questions about Tamanduas while we're here? Because we're going to move on to more animals and give you a kind of a portrait of all of the little guys we have here.
Are these the Tamanduas who live here? Are these our program animals?
They are, yes. We do bring them out to programs. They're well trained by our animal ambassador staff. And that gives you a really good chance to see both their capabilities and how they can climb and hold themselves up. You get that close enough where you get that great smell. I don't know even how to explain the smell. It's just very potent, but you get that kind of experience as well. And just get to see the wonderful ways in which they adapt to their environment and fill that niche in their local areas.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah. Oh, go here. So we're going to walk by some of the program areas here at Hamill where, again, this area, kids can build a nest and pretend like they're a bird. Let's walk over here because there is a really cool spider here. This is the Goliath bird eater spider, which you can just kindly see under that log. And this animal is amazing. It is a part of the tarantula family, but it's huge. It's the second largest spider in the world. It can weigh up to ½ pound. And the body itself can be about 5 inches in length. So it's a pretty big animal that lives in South America in the rainforests. And it's a pretty fearsome predator too. Although its name is a little bit misleading, it only eats birds rarely. It can use its 1.5-inch fangs to take on all sorts of other animals, which it eats, like arthropods and worms and amphibians. Now, they don't start out that large, of course, so they grow. And as they grow, this animal has to shed that exoskeleton because it gets too small. And so as you're walking through the forest, you actually might find the retired shells of bird-eating spiders. So really cool animal. I don't know if you don't like spiders, you're really not going to like this one because it's really big and almost be the size of a dinner plate. So, but very impressive and does its job out in the forest.
About how long would it take for it to shed that exoskeleton?
Well, as it can take up to a couple of days. They tend to get close, and as they get closer to the period to shed, it actually creates a little split, and it comes out of it and it's whole, so the shell itself remains whole, and then it starts to grow. It grows quicker in the beginning of its life, so it has more and more sheds, and as it gets older, it grows slower and has less sheds.
Oh, just like a snake.
Exactly,
Oh, that's
exactly.
cool.
Speaking of snakes, right next door here, we have a really cool ball python. This animal lives in Central and Western Africa. This one is particularly interesting because a lot of the ball pythons have different, what are called color morphs, or different color variation. And this one is a melanistic, which means it doesn't have any color at all. Now, it doesn't mean it's albino, but it doesn't have the coloration, but it gives this really cool white look. Now, while this is great for animals that are not out in the wild because it's not great camouflage. A lot of ball pythons require camouflage to help them sneak up on their prey, or the prey can sneak up on them and get eaten. It is a constrictor, it's not a venomous snake, and so it'll catch its prey, hold it in its mouth, wrap itself in a coil, and then of course constrict the animal until it can eat it whole. Now, this python here has its name called the ball python because of a unique behavior it has. When it's threatened, it can roll itself up into a ball and actually roll away from the predator, which is really, really cool. And so it helps them as a way to escape being preyed upon themselves. So from one cool looking python to another one over here, follow me to our Burmese python. Oop, I just stepped on the cord. There we go. So look at this huge and beautiful snake. This particular animal is found throughout Southeast Asia. It is one of the largest snakes in the world. Most of them can reach lengths of 16 feet, but they have had larger ones that have gotten up to 20, 25 feet in length. But most are in that 16-foot range and weigh about 80 pounds, so it's a heavy-bodied constrictor. Just like the ball python, this animal hunts the same way. It has really good camouflage, obviously, so it blends in to its habitat. They're found in the marshes and swamps and even spend time in trees. But when they're in the water, they're actually really good swimmers, so they can use all their hunting skills to go after, either small other snakes, even small reptiles. But for the most part, they will hunt, rabbits and small mammals that they can get a hold of and other birds. So this animal is really interesting from the U.S. perspective because, unfortunately, it's become an invasive species in the Southeast, especially in Florida. Back in 1992, during Hurricane Andrew, some of the Burmese python kind of holding areas in that area, or kind of breeding areas, were affected by the hurricane, and so a lot of these animals escaped into the wild. And in Florida is a great place to be a Burmese python. There are lots of prey there, and the temperature and climate is perfect, so they started reproducing. And unfortunately, they have decimated the rabbit and fox population and raccoons, and they're out competing some of the other animals there, like the American alligator. And so Florida has gone through a lot of efforts to try and reduce the population of these animals so that we can get a balance back into the wildlife in that area.
Are there any predators for either of these pythons?
Well, for this particular python, when it's smaller, of course, gators can go after it, but humans are the greatest predator at this point, and trying to reduce the population. So there's not a lot to kill it, so they multiply pretty quickly because they lay a lot of eggs. And again, the habitat is ripe and a lot of predators, a lot of prey there for them to eat.
Do you know how much he weighs?
I don't know what this particular animal weighs, but I'm going to take a good guess that it's well over 20 to 25 pounds.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So I think Jill hit him out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a handful for 1 or 2 or 3 people because not only is it heavy, but pythons are extremely strong. So to kind of handle this, it's all muscle. And so they're very, very powerful. And so you want to have a good grip on them when you're taking them out to show to our guests as they come by. Well, sleeping right now, we just missed it. He was sleeping around here for a little bit earlier. Let's work our way over to the other side here. We've got a couple of great lizards. First one, we've got our spiny tail lizard here. You might be able to see him kind of hanging out there. This animal's from northeast Africa. And if you can see his tail, you can tell how he got his name. There's all sorts of spines on there that are really cool. This animal lives in the shrubs and burrows and trees in that part of the world, and it eats insects and other small lizards and even small mammals that it can catch. So it's an opportunistic feeder. And oftentimes you'll see this animal, of course, basking in the sun, which a lot of reptiles do to get warm and to get their body temperature up because they can't produce their own heat. To the right, a really cool lizard called a chuckwalla. This animal resides in the U.S. down in the southwest, and it actually goes into northern Mexico. It's a pretty big lizard, about can get up to 15 to 30 inches long. It lives in the desert, whether it's the Sonoran or the Mojave Desert, but it is mostly a primarily herbivorous animal, eating leaves and fruit. So it's out there, when it's not basking, it's out there trying to find a tasty meal for itself. All right, let's move to the right here. We've got some turtles. We'll move from lizards onto our turtles, and a couple cool stories here. And we've got 2 turtles in this habitat. Let's see if we can find one. Down here, we've got the Blandings turtle. You might not be able to tell, there's some yellow spots on that animal. And this is a really cool story. Brookfield Zoo has been working for almost 10 years now, approximately 10 years, as a part of a kind of a Head Start program to help reintroduce these animals back into the lakes in this area. This animal, unfortunately, was extirpated, and we're trying to help bring them back. The zoo has been working with wildlife agencies, and so we get young turtles. We grow them up to bigger sizes, which when they get to the right size, we can then reintroduce them to the lakes here in this particular area, a lot in DuPage County. This animal lives throughout the central and eastern parts of the US and into parts of Canada. And so it's a really cool animal that we'd love to get back up to their population numbers in the wild. And somewhere in there is a musk turtle. And I don't know if we're going to find that guy. It's a really cool, oh, he's over here to the left. He's hiding behind this log there. He's got his little head stuck in. The musk turtle also is from the US and southeast Canada. It gets its name because it actually has a funny name called the stink pot turtle. It has the ability to release a foul smell from scent glands around the edges of its shell. And they believe that's probably one of its anti-predator things, because an animal comes up to try and eat it and doesn't smell very good and leaves it alone. Now, the musk turtle is carnivorous. It'll eat anything it can catch underwater. Oftentimes that might be amphibians or an unwary fish that came along. But 2 cool turtles that are here in the US, and one has a really good story.
Do they eat the fish that are in this tank?
They don't. They're well fed on good turtle diet. And these fish are pretty darn smart and hard to catch, but
they're pretty big too.
They're pretty big, exactly.
All right.
Awesome. Well, that's a whole segment on reptiles. So let's move over to another mammal. We've got a great, cool mammal here called the small spotted genet. And let's see where she is. Oh, sleeping up in her little nest there. Now, the common genet, or the small spotted genet, is from Africa, and in various regions in Africa, in the central, some in the north. And it actually can go all the way up to the southwestern part of Europe. It is a cat-like creature that is about 22 inches long. It's pretty light, weighs about 4 to 5 pounds. And it lives in dense and scrub vegetation. It has a pretty decent camouflage because it is a pretty stealthy carnivore that hunts a really varied diet, from small mammals to birds, lizards, amphibians, and insects, really pretty much anything it can catch. It is nocturnal, but will spend a lot of time at what's be called a crepuscular animal, where it's active during kind of the sunrise and sunset and sleeps mostly during the day. It is primarily a solitary animal and is, like a lot of cat creatures, are very agile, and it can spend time both in the trees and on the ground. But when it's awake, it's trying to find food, and so it's kind of slinking around, seeing if it can find its next meal. I know, you're very cute. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Any questions about this animal, or should we move on to another big mammal?
Let's move on.
All right. Let's head over to lemur leap, which is one of the favorite animals for the guests that come here to Hamill Family Play Zoo. I had 2 small kids, and we spent pretty much every weekend at the Play Zoo here because it's just so much fun dressing up like a lemur or pretending you're an animal care specialist and pretending to clean up after them. Let's see where our lemurs are. We've got a bachelor troop here, one group of 2 animals. Oh, they're up there in their little nest box, if you can see them. I don't know if you can get a good view there. And we have 6 total, a group of 4 and a group of 2. And it looks like we have the group of 2 out here today. And those yellow eyes are staring right back at you. It's so beautiful. Now, this is an interesting animal because it really fits in a niche in the primate category. It's not a true primate. It's in a suborder of primates called prosimians, but it has a lot of primate-like behavior. It is one of, the ringtail lemur is one of the 5 species of lemurs that live specifically and only on the island of Madagascar off the coast of Africa. And so they are really well able to live in that environment. They prefer vegetation and scrub areas. They spend probably most of their time in the trees, but they're actually quite good on the ground as well. And when they're walking around the ground, they have this interesting behavior where their tails stick straight up in the air, those ring tails where they get their name. That tail is pretty darn long. They can be up to 25 inches long. It looks like little flagpoles walking around because this animal is really social. It can live in groups of up to 30. And their name lemur comes from the Latin, which kind of means ghost or specter, because when you're walking around the forests of Madagascar, they have amazing calls that they make, these really loud, shrieking alarm calls. But you can't oftentimes see them, so they thought they're just ghosts kind of floating around the Madagascar island, how they got their name. This animal, as well as some we've talked about already, uses scent glands to mark their territory and to find each other. And so you'll see them doing that all the time. The glands are at the base of their tail, so it looks like they're rubbing their butts along a branch, but they're actually leaving a scent calling card. It says, hey, I was here and this is my part, and if you want to find me, look for me. So that scent marking is really good. So of course, if you want animals to find you, other lemurs, you have to have a good sense of smell, and they do. They have fantastic vision, but their sense of smell is really awesome too. They are very much endangered, unfortunately. The whole island of Madagascar is a bit overpopulated, so there's a lot of habitat destruction that's affecting a lot of species. This animal needs a very particular niche to hunt. They are a diurnal animal, so they live and hunt mostly during the day, most of the time at night. And they're an omnivore. They will eat pretty much anything they can get, but mostly it's eating fruits and leaves. Those are the easiest to catch, by the way. And so you'll see them kind of foraging around the treetops and sometimes on the ground trying to find something really good to eat. So they're really cool animals. And something that you'll see if you come here to Brookfield Zoo, we've got an outdoor habitat for the lemurs. They are one of the best sunbathers in the world. They just worship the sun. You'll see them kind of lying back, pointing their chest, and they hold their arms out in a cross and just absorb all that sunlight. So it's really fun to watch them out there just worshiping the sun.
About how long are their tails?
About 25 inches long. So their bodies are about 30 inches and their tails are almost as long as their whole body. So it's a really long animal. They're very agile and very much able to both locomote in the treetops as well as along the ground. So really, really cool animal. You might notice in this habitat here, we've got lots of great options for them, lots of enrichment. They are able to climb across these vines. And we also have 2 trees in here that have automatic feeders in them. We want to make sure that lemurs can really forage. And so throughout the day, the feeders will deposit food and the animals have to look for that food. But in addition to that food, we do a lot of training with our lemurs. They are a part of a really strong training program. You might see we have other boxes in this area so that we can train them to go into a small kennel, which allows us to go do a vet visit without much muss or fuss. And they transfer from our downstairs holding area up to this area as well. And so that the keepers have a great relationship with these animals. And training is also a really good way to engage their minds. Not only can we get them to do physical behaviors that helps their bodies, but just the process of learning about new things, learning to modify your behavior to do really cool things like getting on a scale so we can weigh them. That way we know what they weigh and we can produce these wonderful diets for them to eat. So this is just one of the ways that we care for our animals at Brookfield Zoo, and we hope in the near future we'll have Hamel Family Play Zoo open again so you can come in and visit and look at all these great creatures, not to mention all the great programming that goes on here, building, doing crafts with our play partners, learning how to learn about the wild through play, which is one of the main thrusts of this area and one of our principles. So you can come in here and work with the staff. We've got a great greenhouse, which my children loved. There's nothing better than grabbing a squirt bottle and spraying every leaf in sight and maybe squirt your sister or brother at the same time. So they had a great time here, but lots to do. We've got a lot of ambassador animals that come out, so you can look at some of our birds, get the chance to look at our snakes, and even create a maze for one of our small mammals here. So it's a great place to be, and we can't wait to open up and invite you back in as soon as possible. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this segment, got a chance to see some of the animals that are here doing very well at Hamel Family Play Zoo. And of course, we look forward to having you come back. You can come back now and enjoy the grounds. There's great weather coming up. And again, look at czs.org at our website to see what's opening up, because we will be kind of opening things up as COVID restrictions go down. Anyway, have a great day and good to see you.